Hello everyone and welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Adz. If you want 15% off your surfing and outdoor gear, look no further. Go to Northcore on the internet and use the code, capital letters, Grumpy Surf with an extra capital F on the end of surf to receive 15% off your purchase. On the podcast today, I have a world-class British longboarder from Cornwall. My guest is a multiple European Longboard Champion and is in the top 5 ranked competitors on the WSL Longboard Tour. He is also one of the UK's top shapers with his innovative and progressive designs in shortboards to longboards. Please enjoy part 1 of my conversation with Ben Skinner. Ben Skinner, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Good, thank you. Thanks for having me, Adz. Yeah, stoked to be here.
Cool, mate. Couple of questions to start with then. Where are you and have you surfed today?
So I'm currently at the Skindog Surfboard factory in Newquay, and no, I haven't surfed today. As much as I would have liked to have surfed, it was super windy and lots of boards to make, so I pretty much knuckled down. Surf's going to be good tomorrow, so I'm planning my window for then, basically.
Yeah, I've got my window squared away first thing in the morning, and I'm heading off back home then. So, you got anywhere in mind to go?
Well, yeah, a few places, but I think the wind's going to be another factor tomorrow, so we'll have to see. But yeah, excited. Should be good somewhere for sure.
Yeah, did you manage to get in with that swell last week when it was absolutely firing pretty much all up the north coast?
Yes, I did. We surfed a really nice little right-hand point break somewhere close, and it was good actually. Doesn't break very often, so it was nice. We went there with Lucas and surfed, and then we also went and watched the boys at Cribber and saw a bit of that going on, which was rad. It's good to see the boys out there charging. Yeah, I would have liked to have been out there myself too, but I think need to get ready for that again.
Yeah, I think the knees and a bit of training needs to be involved with there before you can start cracking that stuff again.
Yeah, I don't think shaping boards really counts as training for
that. Why, it's like wax on, wax off, isn't it? Like Mr.
Miyagi. Taking off going one way.
Yeah. Mate, let's talk a little bit about your board shape then. So you have your own shaping place now down in Cornwall, and you've just started to be involved with all the Thunderbolt designs, and you're with Firewire as well. So can you explain a little bit how that came about and how you got involved with it?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I mean, it's really coming to fruition now, but this is something that's been part of my life for probably 4 or 5 years now. Thunderbolt was, I mean, look, going back to sort of performance longboard era, which is, what the era I grew up longboarding in competitively, and that's the criteria we were surfing to. So we were designing boards around that, and construction is a huge part of surfboard design, not just in high performance boards, but in any surfboard. So when I came across Thunderbolt technology with Harley Ingleby was riding them, and I met Yusan Mitomo, who invented the technology and is still heavily like the main man, Japanese guy, surfer from, obviously from Japan, living in Santa Cruz. And so we met through the surf events and being on the world tour and just generally meeting each other. And obviously I fell in love with the technology, and it took probably 2 years for that to happen, because to get involved in a technology like that back then was not just as easy as, oh yeah, we'll make you a board. So, we had to commit to a lot of things. We had to build molds to reproduce them. And so, yeah, it was quite a huge step to take, but I made the next 1.5 years a mission of mine to make that happen, and was lucky enough to get some investment off a friend and who owns a big skate park in Kent called Revolution Skate Park. And together we managed to go and start that relationship, and we went to the factory, and we've traveled with Yusan. We've made boards together for a long time now, and so it's great. And that at that time I just wanted the best boards under my feet. That's always been the driving force behind everything I'm doing anyway. Even when I started building boards, I was in the middle of my competitive career, and there's a reason behind it. I really wanted the best boards under my feet. And so, and I just wanted to try stuff, and that's what we did. So we used to play around making carbon rail technology. Probably some people might remember when we first started Skindog Surfboards. The drive behind that was carbon rail technology, and this was way before we did Thunderbolt. So yeah, we definitely had a vision for what USAM was doing, and shared the same passion on it. So the fact that it actually came about, and obviously the people involved, Harley Ingleby, CJ Nelson, now Taylor Jensen, you know, Kai Salas, the people I was around with, my friends, and I knew them well, and I became, obviously CJ became a new friend, but through the process, but I became very close with them as well. And I think we've become a family of longboarders that share the same passion, really, and it's great. I feel really blessed to be sort of part of that. Now, where it really changed for me is a guy called Mark Nelson from America, who was actually dealing with selling our boards globally, and you know, he's just an incredible guy. He really is. I feel really, like, again, blessed to know him. Really, he's just such a knowledgeable, honest, you know, person. And he went and manifested this deal with Firewire, and worked out exactly how he was going to take Thunderbolt to the top of the surfing, you know, surfing world, really, in that sort of industry. And that's what he set out to do. And Firewire were looking for new technology, and the relationship was perfect, really. And so yeah, we're lucky enough now to be working with Firewire, and they're selling our boards, Thunderbolts, again, all the brands globally through their network. So yeah, it's been a pretty sped up kind of few years, but it's kind of unreal, but it's amazing. Yeah.
It must be kind of cool being able to sell your own product that on Firewire's website, where you've got likes of the Slater Designs, Machado's on there as well, and you've got you know, Taylor Jensen's there, CJ Nelson, all these big names that probably, I mean, you're the same age as I am. You know, we grew up watching these people, and now you're almost kind of where you are. You're part of the same brand of that. That must feel quite a good achievement as well, really.
Yeah, it is. I mean, yeah, it's kind of feels, like I said, it's happened very quickly, but you know, I have to be honest, the Firewire crew, you know, Mark Price, they're all just legends. You know, like when we met, we got on straight away, and when I got the opportunity for this deal to happen, and you know, it wasn't guaranteed that Skindog Surfboards was going to be in this deal that Firewire and Thunderbolt were doing, and being the English guy, I was concerned that, you know, am I going to get pushed out of this? Do they really care about me or not? And, you know, the reality is that they do. And, you know, we were going to have a meeting on FaceTime to kind of first meet. And I decided, like, literally 2 days before this meeting came up, that I need to go there and actually meet them. So I just flew over there and didn't tell them, and turned up for the meeting in person. And walked in and shook Mark's hand, and we sat down and we had the meeting together. And you know, from that moment, I think I wanted them to realize that I'm serious about this, and it's a big opportunity, and something that, you know, I want to kind of say thank you for, and hopefully that this is the start of a long-term relationship, which it's definitely becoming. So yeah, and you know, that has evolved, and they met Lucas the second time we went back. I took Lucas, and they met him, and they instantly wanted to help and support him. So they helped me make his boards in their technology, and are going to continue to help him moving forwards in his career down the line. So yeah, they genuinely, that's how I feel. It's pretty amazing. And you know, you're often scared of people like Mark Price being a CEO of Firewire, and you know, those sort of meetings are quite daunting, and they definitely were to me. And I you know, but I was very quickly put at ease, and so yeah, it was cool.
Have you got all of your shapes now are going to be in the Thunderbolt technologies, or you kind of you're still maintaining, you know, the traditional and the progressive shapes that you make?
Yeah, I mean, the new model is the cherry picker that we've just launched, and that's just had a global launch, and is now available in, you know, most places in the world. And that's the first traditional board that we have done with Thunderbolt. And obviously longboarding took a turn in general a few years ago. It's been happening for a while, and it's essentially it happened. And I was in the middle of the longboard tour at the time and competing, and was, I just couldn't get a score on a performance longboard. They just weren't interested in it. So at that point, it's either you give up and go home and like kind of spit your dummy out, or you try and design something, or take something to the party that you can actually be there at the end on. That's what I wanted to do. Is just, I knew that, I love riding traditional boards. I've always ridden single fins and twin fins and everything. I've got a very broad spectrum of what boards I like to ride as well. But traditional boards were just something that came later to me as far as being the forefront of what I'm doing. And it's been great. I just really enjoyed it, having a different approach to longboarding, and it made it really exciting again for me. The board still turns great. There's still a lot of like performance elements in it, but essentially it's a big flip tail nose rider that you can nose ride longer than I can on anything else that I have ever designed before. So it's been great. That's really the thing. Is with Thunderbolt, you can't have every board in the technology as much as I'd like to. It's just not going to happen. But we've definitely got models in the future that we've been working on that we will definitely be introducing. And yeah, I mean, obviously I look forward to that. That's, as a shaper and a surfer, I always want to keep making new designs and keeping surfing fun and exciting. I mean, that's part of the fun of shaping a surfboard, is the different feelings and the excitements you get from that. So that's never going to change. And I'm sure hopefully at some point I'll make something that they'll see and go, yeah, we want to do this too. And that's basically how it's going to work. So keep putting my head down, doing the work, and yeah, we'll see.
What I find really cool is when I'm talking to people like you and that are shapers, you're at the top of your game with your surfing as well. And I spoke to Luke Young last year down in Plymouth, shaper down there. And what the correlation between everybody that is involved with that I've spoken to is they're really, really passionate about what they do. And I think what's really good is, even when I'm talking to you, and people can listen to this as well, is that, you can feel, see, and even in your voice, that enthusiasm that you have behind it. And I think that's probably why, without blowing smoke up your ass, the product that you push out there is good, is because the passion behind it, and you want to make something that inevitably is just making people smile at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. That is it, 100%. And I think as a factory and as a team, and the quality of stuff that we want to produce is definitely wants to be the best. And my team have the same passion about making surfboards. We started it because we love it. My business partner and I, he's been laminating for 35 years now. It's what he does. And Jason Gray, and he's just like, without him, Skindog Surfboards wouldn't have happened. Together, we were making boards in another factory, and just decided, we've got something quite special here, the way we sparked off each other. And that's how we created carbon rail technology in the very initial days, and why we decided to start Skindog Surfboards together, because we found out we were going to have kids at the same time, and they ended up being 9 days apart. And so literally the month the kids were born, we started Skindog Surfboards and decided to, make boards to build something for our families and our kids in the future, instead of just making surfboards with other people's brands on that actually weren't that interested in trying the things that we wanted to try. So really that was the birth of it. Yeah.
How did you find that? Because, you mentioned the start of the podcast was that you started Skindog Surfboards halfway through while you were competing. So how did you find that, having to, you're obviously into shaping and stuff before, but how did you find that transition from being a competitor, potentially shaping your own boards while you're on the tour, but also then starting a business as well? That must have been quite harrowing, really.
Yeah, it was. And I had kids pretty young too. I was 22 when I had Lucas, and at that point in my life, I'd been traveling a lot. I'd been competing a lot, and by the way, I'm still competing. I still love it, and I definitely don't want to stop. So I'm not halfway through. I'm just at the start. But my point being is that I guess I just knew that I needed to be able to support my family, for one. And I knew that I didn't want to do anything else but surf and make surfboards. And I had the opportunity with Gracie to do this. And I, at the very start, the first 2 years of the company, I wasn't shaping the surfboards. I didn't shape surfboards. I was a designer. I had ideas in my head that I wanted to ride. And it was about working with Gracie and creating constructions that with different flex patterns and to, you know, get a different feeling from your surfboard. So that was always the drive. And so Chris Harris was my shaper at the very start of Skindog Surfboards, and he worked for us for 2 years, and we're still really close friends now. He ended up wanting to go off and do design and website design, which he went off and did courses and did, and became very good at it. And but at that point, I was like, right, well, my shaper is going to go do something else. What am I going to do? And I'd been around surfboards my whole life, from in and out of factories. My best mates were Chops the Sales sons, and in fact all three of them. And you know, he sponsored me when I was a kid. I was in and out of there, and so you know, it was, I kind of, yeah, I had the confidence to pick it up and just go at it, and that's what I ended up doing, and had enough people around me to support me and guide me that you know, yeah, I love it. You know, I always wanted to be a carpenter when I was a kid, and I just loved making things with my hands. At school, DT was my favorite thing, making boxes, making stuff. So if I ever didn't surf, that was, you know, so it was kind of the perfect dream for me, is in the end. Even though I had the discussions with Bubs when we were kids, which is Chops' son, who was my best friend. And we used to say, we'd remind ourselves, we're never going to do this, you know, for a living. Your dad is in that room like 24/7 mowing foam. But here I am. So. Do
you remember the first board you shaped?
Yeah.
Did
I do.
It go all right?
Yeah, good. In fact, the first performance longboard I shaped myself, I was the one I actually got second in the world in 2013 in Peru on. So that board, yeah, it took me through quite a lot of events. I won European titles on it, and I feel like whether it was the best board or not at the time, I had the connection with it. So I think no matter what, it was a special board to me. And yeah, so yeah, I was lucky enough that, you know, I'd put a lot of time into design and the design aspects of the longboards, and knew what I really wanted to get out of them. So I had a lot of knowledge before I actually picked up the block. So.
Do you feel, being a shaper, you know, you obviously shape shortboards, like you mentioned, you do Lucas's boards, but have you noticed much of a change with this mid-length minimal revitalisation that's been going on, especially since Devon Howard has, you know, brought the CI mid out?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm good friends with Devon as well, and obviously we used to compete against each other years ago in the Beerette Surf Festival days, and then we became friends closer again when he started doing commissioning for the WSL and Surf Relic. And so when we chatted on the phone a couple of years ago, he was telling me, look, you need to do a mid-length. It's going to be all about mid-length. I'm working on this board, and we chatted about it. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. And to see where that board's gone and is incredible. And so, yeah, you know, Devon's done an amazing job on that board. I think the resurgence of that type of board is a natural progression in surfing. I think there's just cycles that happen, and you know, you're always going to go around in circles, and at some point these designs come back into fashion. But essentially, they're functional. They work better for people. They catch more waves. They get more ride time. That's the key, really. You can still rip on a mid length, but it's just. The pressure's not on you to do it. The pressure's not on you to take off on a mid-length and go vertically. And I think especially the older generation who used to surf like that, when they still want to ride a shortboard and still want to smash the lip, you know, because they just feel the pressure to, and all of a sudden when they ride the mid-length, all that pressure disappears, and it's like, I can just surf and cruise. And I feel like, yeah, it's a great part of surfing. Egg shapes, mid-length boards, whatever you want to call them. It's a hell of a lot of fun. And we've got a new model called the Over, which is our egg shape that we do. And we make that from 6'4" up to 8'10". I've made it in all sizes. It's such a versatile board and fits so many different people. And in fact, my 10-year-old girl's riding my 6'4" at the moment, and she loves it because it's just easy and wide. And, you know, it's just a great board for her. But it also it has responsive aspects to it, and everything I try and do as much as volume is your friend, and I really believe that foam is your friend, and but you need performance elements in there as well. So I've really enjoyed making the over as well, and that was definitely, definitely inspired by Devon's chat to me saying, this is the next, you need to get on this. So years ago, we started making certain mid lengths, and the over is the one that stuck in last year, and it's been a really popular board for us this year because of the current time.
I'm glad you said foam is your friend, because I've been saying that for years, and people just look at me like that. Like, are you pissed? Especially shortboarders. I mean, look, don't get me wrong. I surf a variety of surfboards from 5/8 up to 9/6s, 9/8. So, like you say, it's all about the wave count and fun. Not everyone's a professional.
Yeah, and it just totally, and it just genuinely takes the pressure away from trying to surf like, that kind of performance way. But saying that as well, if you're a longboarder, stepping down onto a mid length is a great opportunity for you to take yourself into bigger surf, or just even at a certain level of your surfing, take yourself into the next level as well. So they cover a lot of, in fact, they cover a huge range of ability and sizes and waves, types of waves that you're going to surf. The over that I ride, I surf it in everything from like reef breaks down on the south coast to like high tide fistral at 2 foot, and I always have fun on it. So and that is the key, really, isn't it? So
I listened to a podcast with David Lee Scales a few weeks ago, and it had a guy on there called John Lillane on there, and he was talking about a board that he made with basically the middle was cut out, and he was talking about that surfing is all about progression. Surfboard shapes are all progressive. And one of the things that I thought was really interesting, he was saying, is that everybody's still surfing a 40-year-old design, the thruster. And no one is like going out there and designing. When Bonzers came in, it was like crazy, because there was like, 7 fins or 8 fins on a board. Like, that's crazy. You can't do that. But then, they started becoming really popular. And then, like you say, everything's in cycles. Twin fins have come back into fashion. Mid-lengths, the Torre Martin films that have come out with Needs Essential have basically just blown everything apart, and everybody's like all over the...
Torre Martin, to me, is, he's definitely led that charge. I mean, Devon did a great addition to the mid-length sort of quiver, but everyone took notice to the mid-lengths down to Torre Martin and the twin fins too, in my opinion. So, I was definitely inspiring for me watching that footage. At the end of the day, being a surfer, a shaper, if you want to surf a certain way, you're going to design a board to try and surf like that. And that's the fun part for me. And watching people like that, you're always going to get inspiration from them. So, yeah, it's hopefully that we keep going around in these cycles, but things actually start evolving. I'm sure there's new stuff to come. But if you look at, like you say, any other technology or things have come a long way, in a lot of things. Surfboard technology, not so much. So we'll see.
We'll talk a little bit about progressive versus traditional, and this is going to amalgamate into another question that I'm going to talk to you about in a minute. I was talking to Devon the other day. He was on the podcast, and he was talking about how he changed the WSL Longboard Tour judging criteria because it was very aggressive orientated. There's a few clips out of Taylor Jensen at the moment coming out and ripping the Thunderbolt board that he's got, the TJ Pro, just throwing spray out and doing big cutbacks. But the tour now, the tour now has been more back to more like a traditional side of things. What's your take on that?
I think I touched on that earlier in the fact that that's really where the cherry picker has come from for me, because that criteria change happened in the middle of well, I would say in the middle of the tour, but definitely we had a year where we had 4 or 5 events, and as they progressed, it went more and more and more traditional. And I think they were making it very clear that it's the equipment you were riding definitely dictates the kind of style of surfing that you're achieving. So if you wanted to compete on the World Longboard Tour, doing that on a thruster is going to be difficult, or a 2+1, whatever. It's going to be difficult. Now listen, Taylor Jensen, Harley, those boys are like my favorite surfers, and you know, I'll always love watching them. But as much as I appreciate Joel surfing and CJ and you know, the David Luivers, and I appreciate all of that 100%. And I love all aspects of surfing, but watching Taylor do his power carves on a longboard, to me, is mind blowing. It's just like, wow, you know, I've seen in my eyes, seen him do turns that I've just been like, what is that? And I come from that era. I definitely appreciate it a lot, and so that's never going to die for me at all. I think, and for most longboarders, I think they'll always be able to appreciate that. But when you're a competitive longboarder, you have to go with the criterias, and that's really what happened with Devon, and the fact that, you know, longboarding's in this cycle that I was telling you about before. Really, longboarding is in that cycle. This happened before, and it will happen again probably, because what's going to happen is it will go so far one way that it will be so traditional. There won't be any differentials between, the surfing, because everybody's just going to be doing long nose rides everywhere. So I think then it will come back to what happens in between those nose rides and how you link those sections together, and then that will start evolving again. And I think it's a great thing for longboarding at the moment, because it's definitely freshened it up. You know, I can't say I was absolutely stoked about it at the start, because, you know, it was the way we had been brought up competing in the criteria that we had surfed in. So, you know, it was like kind of hard to see initially, but I've really embraced it. I've really enjoyed it. I think most people have, that are still doing it, that used to do it. It's, you know, at the end of the day, it's a contest. We still love to compete. We're meeting a family of people. You know, we're all good friends, and it's a nice thing to go and do. So, no matter whether we're surfing performance boards or traditional boards, I'd still love to go and do the contest and have the experience and see all the people. So, but
do you think that change was a direct effect of people not watching the events? Because obviously the WSL is a corporation, and it kind of works on sponsorship and people tuning in, and you know, those sponsors being able to pay for their advertising or whatever to be put on there. And if you've got a contest that people aren't really going to tune into, you've got to do something about it to draw those people in to watch it, because, you know, lots of people watch the shortboarding, you know, the WSL shortboarding tour, both women's and males, and it's up. I love it. I mean, I put it on in the background, but I know the longboarding does happen as well as the QS, but it's not something that people have been trying to. I would say people don't say to me, "Oh, I've seen this competition."
I think,
maybe
you are right, and a lot of it's to do with, you know, when a longboard event's on, it's not something when you open the WSL that it's obvious that it's on. They don't, you know, so it's as much as, I mean, now it's definitely different, and because they've got the image they want. And again, you know, when you're a corporation like that, it's about your image, and essentially the image wasn't working and reaching the right people that they wanted to reach. And essentially for longboarding to go around and work, you know, it's a part of it, isn't it? Marketing and image. So they wanted it to go back to the traditional side of longboarding, so that there's a real difference between longboarding and shortboarding as well, you know. So, but again, I think it's cool, as long as, you know, I wasn't the biggest fan of the ranch event they did there, the WSL one. I don't know if you saw that, but, you know, it was really commercial, and to be honest, I really was excited to watch everybody surf it, and I just wanted to watch everyone surf, and that didn't really happen. And so hopefully it doesn't go too far that way. But as far as the criteria and thing goes, then, you know, we just got kind of, it is what it is, and I've really actually enjoyed it myself.
How do you feel the competitions moving around? Like, for instance, you talked about the wave pool How do you feel about longboarding being put into a situation like that? You know, potentially, obviously, the surfing is now in the Olympics. It's out in Japan. The waves are there, you know, are super good. But when other countries, and it does stay in as an Olympic event, inevitably it is going to be put into wave pools. How do you find that's going to affect, you know, the competition and people viewing because of the result of what happened with that?
Well, I think, you know, uh, to be honest, I don't really, I can't beat like watching pipeline event to say the ranch. To me, they're not as it's not as exciting watching the ranch. But I'm a surf fan. I love surfing, so I really enjoy watching them, whatever it is. But I do find, you know, the ranch can get a little bit the same, and obviously I guess that's going to happen in whatever sort of man-made wave that you put it in. But surfing has to evolve, competing has to evolve. The Olympics is a great thing for surfing. It's going to open up a lot of funding, a lot of opportunity for young surfers. So, you know, it's a double-edged sword to me, really, because obviously the WSL Longboard event this year is actually going to be at the ranch. So all going well and COVID pending, we should be competing there. And as a competitor, I'm excited and I can't wait, you know? So it's for me, it's like, I just love competing. I'd love to go down and do that. Of course, it's a dream for sure. And so, yeah, but to sit at home and watch it, I don't know if it's going to be as exciting or not. And, you know, the way that they portray it and edit it is one thing. I think the live events work much better, and just being able to be more in the competitor zones and feeling the vibe of actually being in there. I know they do that with the CT events, but maybe even more so, the longboarders are very vibey off each other. You know, everyone's happy, and it's a fun thing to watch, I think. So there's ways of making it more interesting. How they do it, I don't know, but I'm definitely excited to go and surf it myself.
Have you been to the ranch wave pool yet? Have you?
Yes, I went.
How did you find it?
It's amazing. It's really an incredible experience. But again, pretty double-edged sword, because you don't get long in there, and you don't get many waves, and you're out and you got to go home again. There's no like, oh, can I just go for another surf? It's like real, it's tough on the soul. But it was yeah, one of the best experiences I've had, really. You know, again, totally different to going on a surf trip and finding a swell on an island off of Scotland or wherever. Totally different, but just, yeah, amazing. It's a real perfect wave, and you know, yeah, I just feel like it's one of those things you want to like have 10 waves just to suss it out and then start surfing it. And I think I had 7 at the start. You know, that was kind of what you get. But I was very grateful, and yeah, if anybody does get the chance, like snap it up.
Did you feel like Rick came from the North Shore after you came out of that wave pool then, did you?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, it's pretty mad place too. It's like, it's amazing. It's a great experience. But I have to say, you know, going surfing the next day in the ocean, we drove back to Oceanside, and it was like 2 foot and on shore, and like kind of fun, but you know, pretty shitty waves. And just loved going surfing and being able to paddle and catch any wave you want. And there's definitely that feeling of going surfing, of having that kind of freedom to just catch a wave that you're never going to lose, you know.
How do you feel about the different types of wave pools? So obviously the Slater one is done with a wing play underneath, much like Surf Snowdonia. And I know you're an ambassador of the wave up in Bristol, aren't you? How do you find the differences in between the wave garden technology and the other technologies?
Well, I think obviously they're just very different, I think, is the key. Not only by how they manufacture the wave, but the style of wave it comes out. And sort of, you know, for example, if you can do airs, then you got to go to Waco, you know. And you know, again, lucky enough, I took Lucas there. I didn't actually surf, really. We were going there for Lucas on a coaching thing with some European guys. which was an incredible opportunity. And watching him fly at sections, I was looking at it going, well, this is the best thing in the world, you know. For if you're that kid who can spin in the air and land, then surely this is the best thing ever, you know. So that's pretty special. But for me, you know, Waco is not really for me, because, you know, it's just, I'd rather go and surf the wave. That, you know, some of the settings on the wave for longboards are amazing. Like the intermediate setting at the wave in Bristol, for me on a longboard, so much fun. And it really, it's amazing to learn on your nose riding skills, and you can improve on things really different. There's so many waves. It's just a totally different experience, you know. So yeah, they're all very different, but all round, I do think the wave has kind of got it, especially when you look at it scaled up and you see like the one in Korea and the potential of that technology. At the end of the day, there's wave every 8 seconds in that pool, and I've had an hour surfing there and been absolutely nailed, you know. Like it's so, yeah, definitely they're different, but I think they're all great. I'd love any opportunity to go to any of them. I'd just bite it off. Even Surf Snowdonia, it's still so much fun just to go and surf. So yeah, if anyone does have the opportunity to go to the wave pools, any of them, definitely do it.
You touched on something a little bit earlier about programs. You know, we were talking about the Olympics. I know you've set up a kids program, haven't you, down in Cornwall? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, look, we support a lot of the kids, not just here but around the country, really, through the surfboards and helping them with surfboards. And I really love it. It's one of the best parts of what I do, really. It's like making boards for the kids, the younger crew, the younger generation, Lucas's friends, and all the kind of the athletes around. And yeah, I mean, we had obviously everything's pretty much stopped now with COVID, but the ABC Aggie board riders down in St Agnes, and it's not just the ABC. There's board rider clubs all around Cornwall that are producing an incredible community of surfers, which are all becoming really talented, and so there's a lot of great kids coming through, women and boys, you know. So pretty exciting. It's just so many people surfing, and I think what we've got to do is kind of nurture them at that point, get them on the right surfboard, and give them the best opportunity to do it if they want. And I think that's really what it's about.
Yeah, you mentioned, well, we were talking about earlier about people that you used to compete with, and I did a podcast with Ashley Braunton, who sends his regards, by the way.
Yeah.
And I'll talk to you about that afterwards in a minute. He told me to ask you, when's his cherry picker on his way?
Yeah, it's coming, mate. Don't worry.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about back in the day, you know, when you were younger and you started competing, that there wasn't sort of that backing with training and people looking at technique, and you know, it was more like you learn everything yourself. Whereas like if you look at the Aussie programs and the American programs, where, you know, they had, you know, the Australian surfing team and the American surfing team, they had like world champions taking guys away and doing video analysis and stuff like that. And I think we are slowly catching up with that. But even though we're an island and we're surrounded by water, and we do have an amazing talent pool like you were talking about, I think having surfing in the Olympics is only going to make that better.
Well, yeah, I think kids dream to be Olympians, whether they're, you know, if you've heard of the stories, you know who they are, and at the end of the day, it's a huge thing to be able to compete for your country in Olympic Games. Now, when I was competing and I was younger, really little, like 11, 12, and starting to compete for the British team and stuff, I was so excited about making the British team. It was the thing that everybody wanted to do, was be on the English or the British team and go on the team trip and go and compete. And you know, it used to be such a big deal, and it just doesn't, the events don't mean as much anymore as what they used to. And I don't know, maybe it's just the way I felt when I was younger, I don't know, but there's just not that like same kind of structure anymore through the events and the platforms, and surfing. Great Britain is starting to come back, but it's had a few years where it's been pretty hard to, you know, events have been dropping left, right and centre. It's really hard for the UK Pro Surf Tour to keep their kids tour going, which was amazing. Dave Reed does a great job, but you know, these things cost money, and they need sponsorship and they need all these things. Now, what the Olympics is going to do is allow that to happen more and give surfing a bigger reach, and therefore make it more, you know, more companies are going to want to sponsor it and put their brand to it, because it's going to mean a lot more. And I think that's what's going to start happening. And I think it's really important. And also the kids are going to doing the English nationals, and that it suddenly means like a potential position in a team to go to the Olympics, or if that ever happens, I think, you know, that's, and I know Lucas thinks, definitely dreams of that. He'd love to, you know, he's watched Jenny Jones in the Olympics, and, you know, when he was a kid, we were watching all that, and I thought that was amazing. Jenny Jones is a legend, didn't she? And just what she achieved, Billy Morgan, the same thing. Just the boost that gave snowboarding, the same thing with the cycling, with the Olympics and the cycling team, and how much, look how good we are, because we were actually given funding to actually support it. So that's the first thing we need, is the funding, which I believe we have got access to that now, and I don't know what goes from there, but these are the essential things that we need to make the future, the next generation of our sport, be it up there with the rest of the world, is to have that structure, like you say. And the Olympics is the one thing, is the kind of key to open all those things up. But then we've got to prove we've got the level, and to get that sort of backing, if you're a sport in the Olympics, you need to be achieving medal placings, and otherwise they're not interested. The money goes into cycling.
Best case scenario, isn't it? We have somebody that goes to the Olympics and competes for the country and medals, and then you can show the world that this really small island just off the Atlantic next to Europe is actually pumping out some absolutely epic talent.
Making bobsleigh touring, you know, it's like
yeah.
But I love that, and I think, you know, I've always driven off that as well, being the kind of underdog, being the British guy, and kind of, I always like being the underdog. It's a good thing to have under your belt, and it's nice to come in and have something to kind of aim at, and you know, try and put your country on the map, and do it proud, and so yeah, it definitely meant a lot to me when I was younger. I loved competing in the British team, and loved doing all the ISA World Games and stuff, and you know, fortunate to win a few medals, and definitely one of the highlights of my career. So I hope that structure grows now for them, you know, off the back of this Olympic sort of status that surfing's got.
I was reading a couple of articles while I was doing a little bit of research, like I do on these podcasts on you, and one of the ones that I read that I found was really interesting was, why is Ben Skinner in the top 5 of the World Surf League Longboard Tour, one of the most underrated people? People don't really know that much about you, and especially, you know, you've got a really big personality as well. I think, going back to talking what we were talking about before with like your boards and stuff, and the technologies that you're coming out with now is going to put you directly on the map. Going back to like what we're talking about there, inadvertently you're going to have an indirect effect potentially on the country because of the platform and where you're from, a small town in Cornwall. You're going to put surfing on that pedestal to a certain extent, which I think is really cool. And I don't know whether you probably thought about that before.
Yeah, no, I hadn't. No, not at all. But I mean, I definitely, like I said, I've always loved surfing for Cornwall. For you know, I was originally born in Jersey, and I surfed for them for many years. And yeah, I always wear it close to my heart, and I love it. So if I could definitely, if in some way I can help that, then you know, that would be a massive achievement, and hopefully a legacy.
A couple of other things, a little bit of a lighter note I'd like to talk to you about. Talk to me about Blue Peter. It was a kids show in the UK back in the 90s. How did you get on that?
I believe it was the section called Bright Sparks, and Diane Louise Jordan came down to my house when I was like 13 years old. And,
no way.
And came and met me and interviewed me, and then took me surfing at Town in the harbour, and they filmed me and stuff, and I won a little Bright Spark clock. And, and I was awarded the Bright Spark of the Week or something for my surfing at the time.
Have you still got it? Still got the clock?
I think I do, but it's in a box in the attic somewhere. But it's hilarious actually. It was really fun, to be honest. She's such a nice lady. She made it real fun, but I was really scared at the time. Yeah, it was funny.
And then the other one was, talk to me about your modelling career.
Oh, no.
Mate, I tell you what, I pulled up some photos of you, man, and it was so cool and corny.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
Well, that was mad, really. And at the time, so how it really started is I met this guy called Ben Weller, who's in fact, I didn't meet him at the time. I didn't know him at the time. He just contacted me somehow and said, look, I'm doing these photos at this photo shoot. Would you be interested in doing it with me? And it'll be this much money for the day and da da da. I said, yeah. I didn't really know what I was getting myself in for. And was just like, yeah, cool. So it was like, meet here this day, it's 2 days. And so I turned up and you know, he's basically a modeling photographer, and he's amazing, really nice dude. And basically he was doing this shoot for a new magazine in America called, it was called At Large, and it had never come out before, but one of the other fashion magazines, something had happened internally in the company, and most people left and started this new magazine called At Large. And one of the designers was Julia Rigolia, her name is Julia Rigolia, and she's this like she's a design person. What do you call him? Her sister, you know, she comes and she was the one that was designing me what I wore in each shoot. And she's like, she's done it for, she's, you know, dressed Brad Pitt and all these super famous people. And I didn't know what the hell was going on, really. So we did the shoot, and I ended up on the cover of this magazine, the long and the short of it. And I have to say, the 2 days was great laugh. It was really fun, but it was so out of my comfort zone. They were putting me in outfits that, you know, one of the jackets was like $8,000, and just like unbelievable kind of stuff. I'm definitely not in that. You know, I wear my freebies from my surf sponsors. But it was brilliant. I had a great day, and anyway, that's what happened. And out of that, you know, I've had sort of modeling opportunities with certain companies, that like Ford Model Agency in New York, and at times deals were offered on the table that you think, wow, this could change my life. I never got one of them, and nothing ever happened from it. And so really it was just a fun 2 days out. Yeah, I wish I could say more, but that's basically my modeling career.
I tell you what, there's some beautiful blue steel poses going on in those photos that I saw.
Yeah, it was good. It was good fun, but nothing ever came of it. I thought it was gonna, at the time, you know, I thought, wow, this, you know, you could get the one contract with somebody, and it never happened. My feet were always too big, or I was too big for the sample clothes, or there you go. Not enough six pack.
And that's it. Please tune in next week for part 2 with Ben Skinner. If you're enjoying the podcast, please like, share and subscribe on your podcast provider, and also follow the Grumpy Surfer on Instagram. Thanks for listening.